I thought, this guy's a Discord dick rider. It's going to be full of Discord. And then the first thing he asks for is this. And I was like, oh my God.
Welcome to Tied Down TV, the punk rock opinion show with me, Geoff.
Danny.
And today we're talking about top 5 American hardcore albums from 1980 to 1984. So, you know, why we tell them why we picked these years?
Well, I think if you look at it, we have to consider, when did hardcore become hardcore? Yeah. When did the so-called 77 sound move into, progress into the hardcore sound? If you think about the DOA album, Hardcore 81,
yeah,
if that was the first time, it probably wasn't, but let's say that's the first time.
It's generally recognised as the time it was used.
As the term was used. It certainly wasn't the first hardcore record. No. Obviously, James had released GI in, I think, 1979. Yeah, you had Black Flag had released a few 7-inches at that point, and particularly the middle class Out of Vogue was released also.
Yeah.
So this was a particularly hard video because there were so many great records to choose from.
Yeah, it took 4 years, but so much good stuff came out around this time period of hardcore. Obviously, it was still developing into its own niche genres as well. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So to start off with, before we actually get into our top 5, we did have one album that we both back and forth on whether we were going to pick it or not. Needs to be talked about in a video about American hardcore from 1980 to 84. Bad Brains, self-titled. I mean, what do you think of that? Look at that cover. But as an album, it's class.
You couldn't leave it out of a list like this.
Definitely not.
No.
Definitely not.
It has to be at least spoken about.
Needs to be talking about. Its track list is full of classics. My favourite band in DC, and obviously there's a lot of like dub reggae influence on here.
My favourite I Love I Jar.
There you go. But which is great, to be fair. But you know, it's got loads on here. It's got Fearless Vampire Killers, Attitude, The Regulator, Sailing On, Don't Need It. It's class. It's all great. We wanted to give it a shout because it is, it's one of the best of the period. We can't really say it's not.
Yeah, it's probably the best of the period, isn't it? And that's why maybe we didn't want to put it on our list.
I mean, I'd say some of my picks are pretty obvious, but this was very obvious to pick. But it is great. Definitely one of the best of the period. Check it out.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get to our lists.
Okay, so I've gone Adolescents as my first choice.
Nice.
So the best thing, probably the biggest compliment I can give about this record is, as I told you, as you know, I came into hardcore from maybe the metal side door.
Definitely, yeah.
And as a kid growing up, kind of with your head down, worried about, where the next slap is going to come from a scally or whatever. Discovering hardcore at like 17 years old, it was like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It suddenly, it put a new spring in your step. You've made all these new friends, gives you that confidence to stick your chest out.
Yeah.
And whenever I get into anything at all, I always want to discover where it came from. I'm a big reader and all that. So probably going back 20 years ago when I first discovered it, I wanted to find out more about the older bands. And I remember going to Probe Records one particular day, asked a few recommendations for this particular era we're talking about now at the time. And I came out of Probe that day with 3 records. One was MDC, one was the Minor Threat compilation, and the other one was this. And the best compliment I can give it is, out of those 3 records, which are all great records, by the way, this one still gets regular playtime on my player. And starts off with a great track, and I Hate Children.
Amazing song.
Controversially named I Hate Children. Right? But another thing I really love about Adolescents is, and this is quite rare, I'd say, for a hardcore band of the time as well, is their slower songs, I think, are their best.
Yeah.
So Wrecking Crew, I love that song.
That's a great song.
Obviously, Kids of the Black Hole is one of the best.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's one of the best punk rock songs ever written.
Yeah.
Amoeba, I think everyone knows from Tony Hawk's.
Yeah,
even back in school.
What a tune! What a catchy hook! And
I remember playing that game, and I remember getting this record years later when I was like 17, 18, and being like, "Oh my god, that's that fucking song off Tony Hawk." So
I think I did that with a few things, to be honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's in my pick, and that cover really pulls you in.
It's iconic.
Yeah. So that's one of my picks. Adolescents. California.
So my first pick. Pick this one first, more because of the pressing that I've got of it, but it's Victim in Pain, Agnostic Front. Now, It's so good. Like, I say depressing because you can't see the artwork on this, and the artwork is actually really good for it. But that aside, as an album goes, it's 15 minutes long, pretty much, give or take, and it blow your fucking socks off, front to back, every tune. Opens with an amazing song, Victim in Pain, the title track. It's one of the best hardcore openers. I know I talk about opening songs a lot, but I love them. Blind Justice, United and Strong, Power, Fascist Attitudes, all on here. Honestly, I can see Danny's grumbling at me here, but I had to pick this. Had to pick it.
Yeah, you poo-pooed me with that one.
Yeah, I know.
Because as soon as we decided to do the video of this particular era, I didn't even get a chance to mention that, and he jumped all over it. And he knew I was going to go for that. He knew I was.
You knew I would. This is probably my favourite one of mine. Yeah, this is this is is up there for me. He's one of my favourites.
I thought, this guy's a Discord dick rider. It's going to be full of Discord, and then the first thing he asked for is this, and I was like, oh my god.
This is great. Yeah. If you want to hear some early New York hardcore, just some fucking great early hardcore. This, for me, the discography wavers after this. I'm not as massively into some of it, but this is where it's at.
Just a staple.
It's a staple. It's a classic. Go out, check it out, listen to it, buy it. It's great.
So if you put that record in a collider in one end, and you put Discharge and some anarcho-punk bands in the other, and smash them together, I feel like you've come out with something sounding a little bit like this. And this is Crucifix, Dehumanization. Unbelievable record, very relentless from start to finish. What I really love about this record is the intro of the first song, Annihilation, which is just starts with a battle cry from the singer with no music, and it really, really hypes you up for what's coming next. It sounds very similar, I think, to Victim in Pain, but lyrically, there's a lot going. You know, it's got a lot in common with the D-beat bands that were coming out at the time.
So.
Lots of songs about the horrors of war.
Imagery, artwork on it,
all that kind of stuff. So if you're a fan of if you're a fan of any of the old, the British D-beat bands of the time or early Agnostic Front, I'd 100% recommend Dehumanization by Crucifix.
It is a great record, and again, it fucking flies by. Really, I think it's about 14 songs on there. It's about 25
very
minutes
relentless.
Doing that, relentless, but it's brilliant. So my next pick, this is a big one for me. It's Group Sex by the Circle Jerks. Now we're talking about hardcore coming out, in the years prior to 81, when this came out in 1980. And by this point, Keith Morris had already done the Nervous Breakdown 7-inch with Black Flag. This is fucking great. It's 15 minutes long, again, much like I said about Agnostic Front, but every tune on here is great. My favourite is Welled Up My Arse, without question. I love that, but every song could be on here. We do Wasted, which was the on the Nervous Breakdown EP, the Black Flag one. And, opens with a great tune, Deny Everything. The artwork, look at that. It's brilliant. It's just so good. It's like a punk Sgt. Pepper's or something, but it's classic.
Ends with a great track as well in Red Tape.
It definitely does, yeah. Red Tape is a great tune. But, again, I like the second album. Not everybody does. After that, for me, the discography gets a bit patchy, but this is fucking great. Go and get it. Go and have a listen. I'm telling you, if you're into hardcore, just from fast punk rock, really, check this out. It's great.
Next, I've gone Tied Down, Negative Approach. Now, if anyone out there knows of any band from this era who had a vocalist that sounded more pissed off than John Brannon, please pop it in the comments, because I would love to hear a band that sounded as angry as this band did back then. I mean, it's probably the angriest record of all time. Do you know what I mean?
Of the period, maybe.
Of the period, definitely. Yeah. I would probably not pick this as my favourite Negative Approach release. That would probably be the 7-inch, which has got some brilliant tunes on as well.
I would agree with that. I'd probably pick the 7-inch of the album, but they're both great.
But, our little channel's named after this album, Tied Down. And also, my favourite song of this whole era of hardcore is actually Friend or Foe. Yeah. So, for that reason.
Brilliant.
But again, if anyone knows of a band that sounds as pissed off as this from this era, please put them in the comments.
I mean, that is a great record. Again, could have been in my picks, but I know how much you love it, man, as well. So I could never pick it.
They're just one of the best bands ever. Anyway.
Great artwork as well. Again, talk about artwork, but talking about one of the greatest hardcore bands of all time, I picked Minor Threat, the first two 7-inches. Now, I know compilation. I made a little comment about compilations maybe being cheating in the last video, but I'm talking about compilations when they're the best of, or a singles collection. This is everything they'd recorded up to that point, two 7-inches. And there's not a fucking dud among the bunch. For me, this band have never done a bad song, but this is just great. It's relentless, opening with Filler. My favourite song, probably I Don't Want to Hear It, but Small Man, Big Mouth, the movement starting straight edge, whether Ian Mackay meant it to start the movement or not, it did. This is great.
How can you have a favourite Minor Threat song, man? Every song's amazing.
It's not. It's just I remember that one the first time when I first listened to the discography CD, and that was the second tune in, and straight away that was where I was like, oh yeah, no, I am definitely into this. And it's early on for me when I discovered these, but they've always stuck with me. It's brilliant. Get this, even get the Out of Step 12-inch as well. It's great. They're one of the best that ever did it for me, and yeah, brilliant.
Very much like what I said about the Ruts in the last video, I'm going to go for the band I consider the most underrated, and the record I consider the most underrated of this era, and that's Zero Boys' Vicious Circle. Yeah. I mean, I found out about this through reading the American Hardcore book.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of it before. Read about it, thought, I've never heard of that. I managed to get hold of a copy, and oh my God, I couldn't believe how good it was. I was thinking, how the hell have I not heard this before? Yeah. The band themselves are outrageously tight.
Yeah, very tight.
Really, really tight. Yeah. The songs on this that sound like you could hear them on almost poppy, but you know what I mean? Like some of these songs could be Ramones songs like Amphetamine Addiction, Civilization's Dying.
That's the tune for that album.
That's such a. When I heard that, I was like, it's almost too good for a hardcore band.
It's so catchy, isn't it, man? The melody it's so good. Yeah. But very angry, very dark lyrics as well. Yeah. Very good. And look at the artwork again. The closer you look at that, you see all the things in it. It's brilliant.
Living in the 80s is obviously released on 7-inch. This is a bit of a bit more of a faster version. And then my favourite song on it's Forced Entry, which I think actually sounds like very similar to a Circle Jerks tune.
Definitely.
So, for me, this is the most underrated record of the whole era, and I'd probably say it's my favourite of the lot.
Oh, yeah, good claim. Yeah. Great album, though. Definitely go and check it out. My next one, it's an obvious pick, but it's got to be picked, I think. It's Damaged, Black Flag. I'll tell you a little story about the first time I ever heard this band, actually. So I was about 16. For those of you who remember, who were around our age, you'll remember a place called Quiggins in Liverpool. That's where you went if you were into anything alternative, really. So me and my mates would go in there. We used to go into the shop where you buy T-shirts, and the guy in there noticed we were starting to sniff around a bit of punk music. And he said to me, I'll borrow you some CDs if you want. Take them home, listen to them, copy them, whatever, bring them back. So I'm like, cool. So he gave me 3 CDs. He gave me this. He gave me Black Dots by Bad Brains, and he gave me, I think it was Bedtime for Democracy, Dead Kennedys, which is probably my least favourite of their albums. But anyway, this was the first one that really got me straight away. I toyed with picking My War as well, and if I was cheating and doing compilations completely, I'd have probably done the first 4 years. Yeah. But no, this is great. It's fucking iconic. Favourite song for me, like I say, it's probably a tie, but it'll be Police Story and Depression. One of them two, but you've got so many iconic Black Flag songs.
Guess which one my favourite song is?
Thirsty and Miserable. Yeah. Which, ironically, really, if you know Danny. But it's got loads of the Black Flag classics on it. Starts with Rise Above. Everyone's heard that. TV Party, Six Pack. Gimme, Gimme, Gimme.
It's an album to get the party started, that is.
I think so, yeah. If you're in a room full of punks, man, you stick this on, everyone's going to they're going to move to it. It's class. Artwork there as well. Henry Rollins, Smashing a Mirror. Kind of sums up the sound of the album as well. It's brilliant.
So, my last pick, I've gone for just an American band, Verbal Abuse. Similar in the sense to Crucifix, in the sense just really relentless hardcore from beginning to end. Not much of a, not really any time to rest. It goes 100 mile an hour from the beginning.
Hard,
I haven't really got much else to say about it, really. It was just an obvious pick for me because I love it so much. Yeah. I'd probably say my favourite tune on it is Verbal Abuse.
Yeah.
And that's all I've really got to say about that one.
It wouldn't have got in my top 5, but I don't feel like it gets talked about enough.
Maybe
to
not.
Myself. I feel like it's a great record. Again, like you said, relentless, fast, hardcore. Yeah. That's what you're looking for. Good artwork again. Good back. The artwork on the back's good as well.
But that's how many bands
it's
have had that.
It's a staple of that era, obviously.
The pictures of the 4 members.
But it always looks cool, man.
Yeah, it does. Especially in black and white.
And in black and white, yeah. Great choice. But my last pick, this is going to be MDC, Millions of Dead Cops, as Danny mentioned before, the very early on sort of thing of this scene. I got onto these, the first time I ever heard them, I was about 16. Somebody, and I can't actually even remember who it was, but I remember them giving me this badge, and it was that. Now, what 16-year-old's not going to see that? Half policeman, half Klansman shooting a gun.
One of the most provocative images
Absolutely. Millions of
all
dead cops.
time.
So I thought, I want to have a bit of this. I've got to listen to this. And it scared me a little bit. Maybe I wasn't ready. Hardcore of that kind of, this level, wasn't quite ready for it. But a couple of years later, 18, 19, I had fucking got it. And when I got it, I love it. It's full of classics again. Corporate Death Burger will be my favourite.
Yeah, my favourite as well. Love that
Great
song.
tune, but Born to Die, everyone knows the chant. But you've got, I remember, John Wayne was a Nazi, Dick for Brains on here, My Family is a Little Weird. Yeah. But it's great, good artwork again, and as we say, that you've probably seen that. If you've ever been to a punk show, you've probably seen that on someone's t-shirt or battle jacket, you know what I mean? A very good, and they started, I think they were formed in Texas. I believe, but moved over to the maybe the East Bay in San Francisco, and on the west coast of America in about 82. And put this out, shout out as well to the EP they put out after it, the Multi-Death Corporations is also fucking well worth checking out. Yeah. MDC, Millions of Dead Cops, go and get it.
So that's our top 5 picks. With it being the end of the year, we've decided to. We forgot our honourable mentions. One honourable mention each. I'm going to go for Battalion of Saints, Second Coming.
And I'm going to go for Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotten Vegetables.
As I was going to say before, with it being the end of the year, we are going to recommend one up-and-coming band to recommend that we've discovered this year. I've picked out Dynamite. We've seen these at the Counterculture all day that those guys put on. There was a lot of good bands who played in that, but to me, these were the best. They really, I really enjoyed their set, and they played a Negative Approach cover, and it's kind of that kind of thing, early, old school hardcore sounding. So yeah, I know the demo you can listen to on YouTube, so check that out, Dynamite.
It's good. And I'm going to recommend Muddle, Blemished. It's a tape I picked up at a show I saw him at a couple of weeks ago supporting Slapshot. Now, from that old day Danny was talking about in Zanzibar as well, it looks like most of the members of this band are in various other hardcore bands around the scene at the moment. This is very post-hardcore, very emo sounding to me, very Discord Records, which I love.
Yeah,
they were good.
Very
good.
Yeah.
Definitely got something going on for me. And I'll be keeping an eye on them, and you should too.
So that's us for this time. Catch us next time where we'll be talking about
proto-punk,
picking our top 5 proto-punk. Until then, see you next time.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
That's what I say, that's what I do.